In this video, we'll study about the cavernous sinus. The cavernous sinuses or paired sinus situated on either side of the body of the sphenoid bone. So this is the body of the sphenoid bone. On either side you have the cavernous sinus. The extent of the cavernous sinus is from the superior orbital fissure in front up to the apex of the petrous part of the temporal bone behind. The interior of the sinus, when collapsed in dissected cadaver, it is found to be traversed by interlacement of reticular fibers, making the sinus a spongy appearance. Hence, it is called cavernous. But in the distended sinus in adult contains trabeculae only at the periphery of the sinus near the entry of its tributaries. When you see the measurement of the cavernous sinus, the length is 2 centimeters and the breadth is 1 centimeter. This is the coronal section through the cavernous sinus. When you see the formation of each sinus, it is formed by the separation between the meningeal layer. So this is the meningeal layer and this is the endosteal layer. The roof and the lateral wall is formed by the meningeal layer, whereas the floor and the medial wall is formed by the endosteal layer. The roof, so here in the posterior part of the roof is formed by the area of dura mater in front of the crossing of fixed and the free margin of the tentorium cerebelli. The roof becomes continuous medially with the diaphragma sella and the dural roof or pierced by the oculomotor nerve. So this is the oculomotor nerve. So you can see, so it pierces the roof of the cavernous sinus. Then you have the trochlear nerve, the fourth cranial nerve. So this also pierces the roof of the cavernous sinus. The third and the fourth nerve close to the posterior clinoid process. So here you will get the posterior clinoid process. Close to the posterior clinoid process, the third and the fourth cranial nerve pierces the roof of the cavernous sinus. Close to the anterior clinoid process, here you get the anterior clinoid process. The roof is pierced by the internal carotid artery. So this internal carotid artery pierces the roof of the cavernous sinus near the anterior clinoid process. So the roof is pierced by the third and the fourth cranial nerve near the posterior clinoid process, and the roof is pierced by the internal carotid artery near the anterior clinoid process. Next we'll see the structure passing through the carotid sinus. The first structure is the internal carotid artery. So you can see the internal carotid artery which passes through the sinus. This internal carotid artery is surrounded by the plexus of sympathetic nerves and the veins. Here you can see the internal carotid artery. It enters through the apex of the petrous part of the temporal bone, passes along the floor of the sinus, lodging in the carotid sulcus of the body of the sphenoid. So here you have the carotid sulcus. So it lodges along the carotid sulcus of the body of the sphenoid. Then it later turns upward, pierces the roof of the sinus through the carotidoclinoid foramen. The next structure that passes through the sinus is the abducer nerve. So here you can see the abducer nerve, the sixth cranial nerve, which lies infralateral to the internal carotid artery. In this picture you can see this is the abducer nerve, the sixth cranial nerve. The sixth cranial nerve, it enters below the petrosphenoid ligament and accompanies infralateral to the internal carotid artery. The nerve leaves through the superior orbital fissure within the common tendinous ring. So the structure passing through the sinus are the internal carotid artery surrounded by the sympathetic plexus and the nerve, and the sixth cranial nerve infralateral to the internal carotid artery. The sixth cranial nerve is the abducer nerve. Now we'll see what are the structure present in the lateral wall of the sinus. So from above downwards, you have the third cranial nerve or the oculomotor nerve. Then you have the fourth cranial nerve, the trochlear nerve. Then you have the ophthalmic nerve, a division of the trigeminal nerve. Then you have the maxillary nerve, a division of the trigeminal nerve. So the structure which are present on the lateral wall from above downwards are the third cranial nerve, the oculomotor nerve, the fourth cranial nerve, the trochlear nerve, the ophthalmic and the maxillary division of the fifth cranial nerve or the trigeminal nerve. So here in this picture you can see, so this is the third cranial nerve, the oculomotor nerve, and this is the fourth cranial nerve, the trochlear nerve, and this is the ophthalmic division of the trigeminal nerve or the fifth cranial nerve, and this is the maxillary division of the trigeminal nerve. So these four structures lie on the lateral wall of the cavernous sinus. The oculomotor nerve, it enters the sinus by piercing the roof near the posterior clinoid process. Then it leaves the sinus by passing through the superior orbital fissure through the tendinous ring by dividing into two rami, an upper division and a lower division. The trochlear nerve also enters the sinus like the oculomotor nerve and leaves the sinus through the superior orbital fissure outside the tendinous ring. The ophthalmic division of the trigeminal nerve, it enters by piercing the cavum trigeminale and the lateral wall of the sinus and leaves through the superior orbital fissure by dividing into lacrimal, frontal and the nasociliary branches. The maxillary nerve, the entry is similar to the ophthalmic nerve and it leaves the sinus by passing through the foramen rotundum. Next we'll see the relations of the cavernous sinus externally. Medially you have the pituitary gland or the hypophysis cerebri. Medially and below you have the sphenoidal air sinus. Laterally, so this is the lateral relation. So laterally you have the cavum trigeminale containing the trigeminal ganglion in the postero-inferior part of the lateral wall, and also it is related to the uncus of the temporal lobe. So here you have the temporal lobe of the cerebrum, the uncus of the temporal lobe. In this picture, laterally the cavernous sinus is related to the uncus of the temporal lobe. Above, it is related to the part of the optic chiasma. So this is the optic chiasma, and it is also related to the internal carotid artery. So here you can see the internal carotid artery. The internal carotid artery turns backward and then upward after piercing the roof. The course of the artery within and above the sinus describes a U-shaped loop that is known as the carotid siphon. Next we'll see the tributaries of the cavernous sinus. So the first tributary is the superior ophthalmic vein. Next you have a branch from the inferior ophthalmic vein. Sometimes the central vein of the retina. Then you have the superficial middle cerebral vein. So here it is cut. The superficial middle cerebral vein also drains into the cavernous sinus. Then a few inferior cerebral vein also opens into the cavernous sinus. Then the sphenoparietal sinus. So this is the sphenoparietal sinus that opens into the cavernous sinus. Sometimes the anterior trunk of the middle meningeal vein or the frontal trunk of the middle meningeal vein. So this is a diagrammatic representation. The tributaries are the superior ophthalmic vein. So this is a superior ophthalmic vein, and then a branch from the inferior ophthalmic vein, then the central vein of the retina, then you have the superficial middle cerebral vein and the inferior cerebral veins. Then you have the sphenoparietal sinus and the frontal trunk of the middle meningeal vein. Next we'll see the communications. It communicates with the transverse sinus. So this is the transverse sinus. It communicates with the transverse sinus through the superior petrosal sinus. Then it communicates with the internal jugular vein through the inferior petrosal sinus and also the veins around the internal carotid artery. Then it communicates with the pterygoid venous plexus through the emissary vein that passes through the foramen ovale, foramen spinosum, foramen vesali and the foramen lacerum. Then it communicates with the opposite side cavernous sinus through the anterior and the posterior intercavernous sinus. Then it communicates with the superior sagittal sinus through the superficial middle cerebral vein and the superior anastomotic vein of Trollard. The cavernous sinus communicates with the facial vein by two routes. One through the superior ophthalmic vein. Through the angular vein, it communicates with the facial vein. The other one through the emissary vein, pterygoid venous plexus and the deep facial vein, it communicates with the facial vein. So by two route, the cavernous sinus communicates with the facial vein. So what is the importance of this communication? Septic thrombosis of the cavernous sinus may be caused by numerous communication from the dangerous area of the face, the orbit and the pharynx. So this is manifested by severe pain in the eye and the forehead along the distribution of the ophthalmic nerve. Then you have the ophthalmoplegia due to the involvement of the third, fourth and the sixth cranial nerves. Then you have marked edema of the eyelids with exophthalmos due to the congestion of the orbital veins. Because of the intercavernous communication, unilateral thrombosis becomes bilateral. If the internal carotid artery is ruptured as a result of fracture of the base of the skull, an arteriovenous communication may be established between the bed of the artery and the cavernous sinus. In this condition, it is manifested by pulsating exophthalmos, edema of the eyelid, partial or complete ophthalmoplegia and a loud systolic murmur over the temporal region. Ligation of the internal carotid artery may be helpful, but this may develop contralateral hemiplegia. Next we'll see what are the factors which regulates the blood flow in the cavernous sinus. The blood flow of the cavernous sinus is regulated by the expansile pulsation of the internal carotid artery and also by the gravity and the change of position of the head.